Which three UCLA players can stand to make a big impact during their upcoming Spain trip? We'll talk about that and more here on Locked On UCLA.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show, maybe this episode, your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. So like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for coming every day, because, football news is coming out. Chip Kelly's going to announce a starter at some point pretty soon before the Coastal Carolina opener. And basketball is heading to Spain soon, which is where we're going to start with this episode that's brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. So while there's a whole plethora of options you could go from for UCLA, looking to say who might actually be someone that can be a big driving force to success this year, I know it's interesting to see that, all right, Dembona won't be playing in Spain. It's pretty much unlikely, or if not already confirmed, that Mara and Berke Tunchil are not going to Spain as well. They're playing with their national teams, and I don't think they'll enroll in time from what I've read and what I've figured out. So I've kind of chosen a select group of guys in terms of, all right, these are guys that need to make an impact, that can truly earn their spot or get a driving role into the success for this season. So I'm going to start with one spot. I've talked about him a little bit now. I know a lot of the fans have been asking for this guy to really step things up. I'm not asking for him, but maybe saying this is someone pointing their finger in the right direction, saying, hey, this is the guy who's going to lead UCLA, especially from a guard standpoint, who's got the leading intangibles from everybody returning in terms of Dylan Andrews. I've talked about him little bits and pieces here, but this is someone who's truly got the inside edge to being the starting point guard for the season. Things can change, especially with 8 newcomers, a transfer, 7 freshmen, even McClendon, who might even want to battle Andrews. But this is someone who, for UCLA, if they're going to go with the dual guard system and find ways to have a true point guard that can take over for Tiger Campbell after so many years, Andrews has more athleticism, a little bigger. They can get that jump shot down. He can be truly a threat for someone with UCLA. And reading an article by Ben Bolch talking about the likes of UCLA's team coming off their big weekend getaway at Mick Cronin's place where they're having the cheeseburgers, I believe is what they're talking about, with all the different backgrounds, all the different cultures coming together, still enjoying a cheeseburger or two with Mick Cronin, getting them together. And it's interesting because Mick Cronin's already alluded to it. We're definitely going to have a bigger team than I've ever had, is what he was quoted in saying in this article. But it's still equally important to who's going to be the starting point guard. Andrews bringing it in, bringing it home, because that's a place who can be your floor general. Mick Cronin's emphasized that he wants the ball to move around so they can get the ball to the post, get the open shots for the variety of players who will be taking and maybe making shots this year for UCLA. And that starts with Dylan Andrews, who can be a leader. He was an emotional firecracker, in my own opinion, in my words, with he can come in, get a dunk, make a big move, go make a big play last year coming off the bench. Now, how do you rein that in? How do you bring that into a leadership role in the next year as a sophomore, when a role is expected, at least at the beginning of the year, to expand significantly, while it might not necessarily turn into numbers? It might not turn into a 10-point per game score, 15 points. It might not turn into 15 shots a game like we would see Tiger Campbell go. But Andrews' role will be important and very important in developing his own individual skill, his ability to maybe make it to the next level. And for this team to be truly successful, it might not come on the stat sheet initially, but a leadership role, the way to run the offense, and then him scoring, getting buckets too, being that emotional power that the Bruins, that emotional lighter, whatever it is that you want to say, he can be important. But now a couple of players in terms of, that was the one returner I'm kind of thinking of for Andrews, who can really solidify a role maybe this year overall, looking in those first few games heading into Spain, right? That's someone I'd like to see him stand out, considering Mick Cronin isn't necessarily looking at wins and losses going into Spain, right? He's talking about, all right, we're just here to learn and have a fun time and get better while doing it and play some good teams. A couple of non-professional teams and one professional team they'll play in Spain. But two guys I think that are really going to battle it out. Both freshmen, one international, one domestic, and these two guys are battling for playing time, maybe not necessarily directly in different spots, but it's Jan Vide and Sebastian Mack. Vide, who has been one of the earlier international recruits UCLA got in the offseason, someone who was hyped up with a lot of stats and tangibles playing internationally, coming over to UCLA, a little bit bigger than most, and he's got some good NBA comparisons, just like every freshman recruit UCLA has so far this season, which could easily be amongst the nation's best. Jan Vide is someone who could be a tall point guard, could even be playing next to Andrews at the 2 for a long stint and long stretches at a time. This is where he can capitalize on this opportunity with no Burke, with no Mara, as maybe UCLA, and no Bona, I should say, probably with the first two not going to Spain. UCLA might actually play a lot smaller when they play in Spain. So that might let the lineup stretch out a small ball lineup as they can test it out in Spain. Vide and then Sebastian Mack can get a lot of playing time when they can go try and run the system with Mick Cronin as they learn it as true freshmen. But one of the things I took away from what Ben Bolch talked about in his article, Mick Cronin talked about something I didn't realize, a wild card, if you will. Sebastian Mack is going to surprise a lot of people with how good he is. He's always in attack mode. He's got great toughness. So you know that's something I believe in. Talking about one of his true freshmen coming in. He had a lot of high praise for players that are currently enrolled at UCLA, not to mean that the other two inside we're not excited about him. But with Sebastian Mack, I was always wondering, how is he going to fit in with this team, right? You've got Andrews, you've got McClendon vying for time. Even Vide was going to battle for the one. Mack could easily battle for one, depending on what role, what duo combo role, 1 or 2 slasher guard that he's going to fill for UCLA. And while they did have 3 4-star domestic recruits and all the other ones are rated 4-star, unranked, they're trying to figure out how good the Maras, the Buyang Chills, the Feeble, all those guys are, right? How good are these players? Well, Vide, he's going to be competing specifically with Mack, who I thought might actually, before reading this Mick Cronin comment, might have been before these extra practices they've gotten, because they get these 10 extra practices to prepare to go to Spain before the quarter system starts, when the summer quarter ends. And I thought, hey, he might be one of those players that's going to see a lot of time on the bench, barring a lot of UCLA blowouts, but that doesn't seem to be the case. That does not seem to be the case, as he's early on competing. So this is why this Spain trip is important for those two, to see what roles they'll get. Is it a starting role, a heavy minutes off the bench to start the season, or is it someone who's going to maybe regress and still have to learn and go through those freshman lumps when they come back stateside and continue to prepare for the season right before it goes in early November, when they have those exhibition game on Halloween. Was it Cal State LA? I forget who they're playing. So those are the 3 guys. Andrews, he can develop his role, earn and develop that role as a leader, the floor general for a team that wants to move the ball around. Mick Cronin is emphasizing. Then you've got Vide, who can easily grab that spot, grab a lot of minutes, maybe impress even more of his teammates. And then you've got Mack, who's challenging in practice. They've got all those highlights coming out on social media, Twitter, or whatever it is called now, and everything else. Those two will be in a heated battle between those two. Those are 3 guys that could stand out and need to make an impact one way or another, either for the team or just for their individual prospects to play this season for a team that's loaded and looking for guys to develop and fill certain roles with the guys departing to the NBA and or graduation from last year's team. That's what I got. Not that Feeblay's not going to make a difference, Nubo or Devin Williams and Brandon Williams. It's not that those guys aren't going to be impactful in any way, or anybody else, right? It's not that we don't get, McClendon, but those are the 3 guys I'm emphasizing based on either a head-to-head role, guys that can earn time, or who can develop into a leader. They all deserve to get time. We'll just see how it plays out when those Spain games happen in about a week's time or whatever. It's coming sooner than we think, and we'll get excited and react to it, which is why you should become an everyday listener of the Locked On UCLA podcast. And also, what's going on at UCLA fall camp? What's happening with football? Are they faster? Do they look faster? We got more reports on that coming up next on Locked On UCLA. So every new hire might seem like a high stakes venture, right? It might seem like if you're a small business, you want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. Mick Cronin can kind of talk about that recruiting wise, even Chip Kelly, even going through the portal. LinkedIn Jobs can help you find the right team, right people for your team faster and for free, which is why you should use their simple screening questions. Makes it easy to focus on the candidates that you want to not only interview, but then eventually hire and get the right field in play. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Second segment of the Locked On UCLA podcast, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer with you guys. And, talking hoops to start. Spain's coming, but around the corner, less than a month, maybe, 3 weeks? I don't even know. Well, whenever you're listening or watching this podcast, could even be before or after. But soon enough, football is starting. And while UCLA doesn't have a week 0, they do bring in Coastal Carolina. And it was fun to read another one of Ben Bolch's articles, seeing all the different pieces from, Bruin Report, seeing from Fan Nation, all the people, everybody, dear friend James Williams, right? All the different reports coming out about what's the takeaways from training camp. Remember, the media can only have a certain little corner in a part of the practice center, and they're only allowed so many minutes to view practice. So there's not a true sense as to what Dante Moore or Ethan Garbers or whoever it is and whatever is going to wind up happening. There's not a full, complete sense as to what's going to happen for the starting quarterback position just yet from anything I've read. Everybody's impressed by the words, the jokes, everything cracked and quipped during post-practice interviews between the maturity and the intellect of Dante Moore as a young freshman, the wise old man, I guess you could joke around and say, of Ethan Garbers, who's been around, even transferring in, one of those early transfers into UCLA in the Kelly era. And then what's going to be the difference this year, right? The talk about the team is now, especially reading this article, the depth of this team. And while there were some depth questions in terms of what are they going to do when it comes to the secondary, when it comes to maybe linebackers, the offensive line, which was beat up during spring practice, and while guys were still transferring over or finishing grad credits to turn and become official UCLA Bruin, that's what led to some, dare I say, shorthanded positions that needed to be filled during spring practice. UCLA's got some depth, and they're using a COVID-19 exception where they can bring 120 players to training camp. And Chip Kelly doesn't even want to make cuts with so many guys he's brought to these camps. And the depth, the emphasis is win, 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 trying to lessen those injury concerns. And while there's different types of depth, right? They've got the positions, they've got guys they trust. Of course, there's different when you got 3 or 4 or 5 stars from various years, right? Senior, junior, sophomore, freshman, red shirt mixed in there, right? UCLA isn't necessarily that, but they've got guys with experience. They've got talented players, options all around, and a team that is only getting faster, right? Josiah Norwood was quoted as saying, we're almost doubling, tripling our numbers from last year. So it's been really impactful where, well, it's not the old days of Jim Mora where they'd go down to San Bernardino in 120-degree heat and go earn their toughness medal and become a much tougher team than they were in years past during those fall camps to have the toughness medal of a 2-week, quote-unquote, week of torture, not actually, but just kind of when you have to condition and prepare for the season, not fun to do it in triple digits. But when it's been a little toasty in Westwood, especially during the summer months, then they're in better shape, according to the article and what everybody said. They've been being fresh during those 2-hour, 3-hour, 2-hour practice sessions. And what's important is we've talked about it. Even Kyle Ford coming over from USC, when he transferred over to UCLA, mentioned about the nutrition. There's the offensive part. There's that genius for Chip Kelly. but it's the other intangibles that he's trying to look at, right? It's the nutrition, the conditioning aspect, things that we hope can be important when UCLA goes to the Big Ten, even though football is only there for 36 hours at a time in years in the future when they don't have too much traveling to do within a single week as other sports might. But the conditioning, the grinds, the warm early weather, right? While it might not be last year where it'll be 116 at the Rose Bowl on night one at a 12 p.m. kick with 3 daytime kicks to start, it's going to help when you've got depth, which is important. You've got a team that's getting faster, building, getting even more into shape, and they're looking leaner. You can go based on what Chip Kelly's saying. They look a little bit leaner and a little bit more athletic. I think we're running better. And I know from our data, from miles per hour and high-speed distances, explosive efforts, and all those other things, they're up from where we've been here in the past. It's a lot of mumbo-jumbo. That's a lot of things to digest to say we're looking like a faster team. That could just sound like Coach Cliche, but with the way Kelly kind of operates things, that's something to take note of when maybe early in the season, if they go get a Utah, right? If there's a late game surge, is that what UCLA is going to do, right? They tried to hold on versus Washington last year. They pushed away from Utah in 2022. Can they do those things if they struggle in the beginning against a Coastal Carolina or a San Diego State? Will they push them out the door if it's a close game in the fourth quarter? I know you think about all these different things as a coach, but that's how you build your team, and it looks like the team has the stamina to do so. Again, there's been more talk. The well-versed Dante Moore, he's been impressing the media and what his answers have been, just dispelling rumors about transferring because of displeasure, the false rumors of the NIL thoughts, even if he does or doesn't win the starting job right away as a freshman. Now, whether that changes in the future, who knows? But for now, earning a lot of credibility and a lot of warm fuzzies with the media. And then everybody talks about Femi Oladejo, right? This is more building on the Ben Bolch article talking about Oladejo, someone who had 17 tackles against UCLA in that game at Cal last year on Black Friday, and him coming over to UCLA, man, that linebacking room has got to be very, very fun. We've got Mawastow, Cajo came back. You've got the likes of John Vons, Kane Madrano, Shea Bryant Strother, a veteran group, and we'll see how it goes with talent, speed, tenacity. Ken Norton Jr. out there coaching them linebackers. We'll see how it goes when you bring the 6'3", 250-pound Oladejo out there, and we hope he can be a beast in the middle of the defense. And then all the reinforcements coming over that weren't there in spring practice help maybe address some concerns about depth. And while I might have a little bit more difference of opinion in terms of full depth, the skill positions, they've got it: running back, quarterback, receiver, tight end. They're building it. Last year, they didn't necessarily have it after an early fall camp departure. But now here we are looking and building for a team that should be very fun to watch offensively once they get their groove. Defensively, everybody's coming over from different sports, returning from injury. The D-line should be interesting. The linebacking crew. Secondary, that should be a little bit of a cause for concern, but they can sack the quarterback. Then if they give the quarterback no time to throw the football this year, maybe the secondary, which wasn't touched on in this article, which could be a concern in year one under Denton Lane, might not necessarily be something they can address this year, moving guys here and around. I know Jordan Anderson and a couple of other JUCO transfers could try and address those vacancies or those, glaring holes in the defense in the secondary. I do think this team can be a unique unit this year. You got an energetic, youthful D coordinator. I believe I saw the other day, what did Rex Ryan say? He thinks Danton Lynn is going to be a head coach much sooner than UCLA thinks or wants him to be. So that's how much they're thinking about the defensive coordinator in terms of how highly Rex Ryan, I believe it was Rex Ryan. If I'm wrong, we'll just start putting him there. But he was quoted as saying, hey, Danton Lynn is someone who is going to be a big-name football coach in the future. And maybe we can enjoy it while UCLA has him. And this could be a fun dream season in the final year of the Pac-12, which leads you to think and leads me to finish this off football-wise. The AP Top 25 comes out. The Bruins officially are actually, 28th? They received a lot of votes, finished within the top 30. A lot of people having differences of opinion, right? As high as maybe, 17, 20, and some people even locally having them with all the question marks just outside the top 25, but enough talent to maybe make a push for being one of the top 25 teams in the country, just like they were last year, pushing even top 10 at some points during the year when they started undefeated for the first half, close to half of the season. Now here we are wondering, are they going to be a top 25, top 20, top 15? In the Pac-12, that I believe has 5 teams in the top 20 or something close to it, with a schedule that could be manageable, room for excitement, but also room with still some question marks at quarterback that have yet to be answered officially, and rooms and questions about the defense that we still have to see how they play against the 3 or 4-time Sun Belt Player of the Year and Grayson McCall coming out, right, Monday at San Diego State. And then you bring in North Carolina Central. If the Bruins start 3-0, excitement. If not, well, we have to see how this team grows from training camp to now. So we'll see how it goes. Starting quarterback going to get named soon, which is why you should stay with Locked On UCLA. We're going to talk about the portal, not football, not Chip Kelly's doing. I know he always likes to hit the portal. Mick Cronin did it once. It's actually Kelly Inouye Perez snagging a couple of maybe not late transfers, but getting a couple of transfers to bolster her team for 2024 and her last venture as a Pac-12 head coach before they moved to the Big Ten. We'll finish that up on Locked On UCLA. Welcome back to the podcast. Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer with you guys. And what's important for UCLA softball coming off of what, most would say disappointing year, getting upset at your own home regional, going 2-0, and a dream year where they thought maybe the Bruins, with all those wins, could have won the inaugural Pac-12 tournament, fell a little short to Utah, had everything riding for them, beating all the good Pac-12 teams, only to find themselves falling short and not even getting to the Women's College World Series, ending a long run of not just getting out of the regional, but getting to the supers. And that's where there'll be this drive, this tenacity after seeing all these seniors who stayed through COVID, through injury, all these players that are really good. You could go on a laundry list of players that you really wanted to see win a title and dethrone Oklahoma. But here you are, and this is going to be a new team. A lot of talents coming in, a couple days older. It's from, I believe, Friday, August 11th. But the Bruins, maybe slid under the radar there, signed 2 transfers. So initially, this is what their class is already. You've got Mia McNulty, got Addison Mettler, and Caitlin Terry, a utility player, a catcher, and a left-handed pitcher. Those are 3 true freshmen coming in already in this class of 23, which will make their debut season in 2024, 1 Pac-12 year and the rest in the Big Ten. The 2 transfers coming in include an outfielder, and then you've got a right-handed pitcher coming over from UC San Diego. Jada Cecil comes over. She's someone who's 5'10", a Triton from La Jolla, 2 Big West first-team selections in 22 and 23, an ERA under 2, 31 and 15, 405 strikeouts over 335 innings pitched, 2 years of eligibility, and as someone who was actually coached by Rachel Garcia down in La Jolla. That's what Kelly Inouye Perez was saying about Rachel Garcia coaching Cecil. So you wonder if they had hey, she was super good. This is someone who had 234 strikeouts, a single game program record for the Tritons of 16 Ks in a single game, and April 1st, no April Fools there, in 2022, and was a 20-game winner with an ERA under 2.20 and 5. She was her high school league pitcher of the year at the end of 2021, coming from Temecula Valley. This is someone who can help bolster the pitching staff, losing some key pieces from last year, graduation, 6th, 5th years with the COVID years, and the transfer portal, everything adding up. So the Bruins really have to build, maybe not from the ground up, but add pieces. And this is a nice piece after UCLA last year proved we're going to start going to the portal. We'll poach from the Pac-12. They did that a couple of times. They bring in Cecil, who can easily be someone to fill in. And then you've got Alchin. You've got Jalen Alchin, who is a transfer from Washington, a grad transfer. So Cecil's got 2 years. You've got Alchin, who will be a grad transfer for UCLA 2024, has over 160 games at 275 batting average, 70 RBIs, 21 home runs. Last year in her quote-unquote senior year in Washington, 289 average, 333 on base, and a 589. That was her slash line. Someone who has played for the U.S. junior team, has played with travel ball teammates like Maya Brady, Charlize Palacios, Janelle Maonio, and actually the SoCal native from Huntington Beach, 3 years in the postseason, was in the Women's College World Series with Washington in 2023 when Washington was trailing their own regional, had a big RBI knock in the 7th when they beat McNeese State in the regionals when they're struggling. She was a Pac-12 all-freshman honoree in 2021 and looks to be one of those 5 newcomers this year for UCLA, along with the Terrys and the Metlers and the McNultys that can build this team after a fun career at Washington, comes to UCLA and wants to help bring the Bruins back to prominence and make another Women's College World Series run after, getting to Oklahoma City with one team, trying to do it again, this time with the Bruins. So remember, they're losing some big bats, some big senior veteran presence from the team, and she could be one of those after having reached it in, trailing their own regional. She can bring that experience when they need that big hit, losing by a run, 2-0, 2-1 against some of those mid-majors that they lost to in their own regional at home in Westwood, right, at Easton Stadium. They can try and make amends and do that next year, replacing some big-time talent, but trying to do so with various freshmen, sophomores, and now transfers for Kelly Inouye Perez. So a two-time first-team Big West selection, Cecil Alchin, coming over from Washington, has already had some postseason experience, wants to fill some vacancies for UCLA with a nice bat with some good slash lines from her Washington career. So those are all important. Bruins hitting the transfer portal, almost everything you can do nowadays. And that's why you should stay with Locked On UCLA. We'll cover it here on the Locked On UCLA podcast. Every dayers, you would hear it, listen to it. You don't want to miss it when we talk softball and other sports as well. Football big news should be basically coming out almost any day. More updates as to what the team's going to look like closer and closer to week 1. And then, hey, basketball. They're going to Spain pretty soon. You're going to want to know what's the updates. Maybe someone goes that we don't expect. Maybe something happens. Maybe they blow out all these teams. They look at the best team in the country, and they're number 1 preseason. Who knows? That's why we're all excited to learn more about UCLA coming up. Stay tuned for more. I'm Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Get your hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA fights. This has been Locked On UCLA. Go Bruins.